Hi everyone, welcome back to OC Aviary. Now today we're going to be looking at some of the birds I've selected for the breeding season, and that's going to be the red polls and that's going to be the greenfinches. So we're going to look at the birds that we've decided we're going to breed from, and that's going to consist of show birds as well as birds that are in the flights and in the flight cage for the red polls. And then we've got a few other updates to show you as well, and a few new things to introduce you to as well. So obviously with the turn of the new year, bird breeders, we're all trying to look now at what we're going to be breeding from and what do we need to get rid of now in time for the breeding season. We don't want to be having too much stock, because not only does it cost a lot of money to upkeep it all, but it's also that they're just not going to be any use in the breeding season, so it's better to let them go to other breeders and people who would like them. So for the red polls, well, it's looking at 8 pairs for next year. It's a difficult one with how I'm deciding how I'm going to pair them and how many pairs of what we're going to go for. So as I've previously said, we're looking at normals, cobalts and cinnamons. The idea of removing Isabel's, agates and things like that is I'm not wanting those dilute mutations because I don't want them to ruin the colour, which we're trying to focus on in these darker birds. And then still the cobalts we're going to keep separate from the normals. We might put a cinnamon or two into the normals in the future, but for this year at least, this coming breeding season, what it's looking like is 3 pairs of normals, possibly 4, and 5 pairs of colour variants. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to build them as 2 separate studs, and the idea of doing this is to try and focus on both of them and build them separately to just better them, really breed them better and hopefully get better results, better birds produced, and then it's hopefully going to complement each other. So the idea of doing the 3 pairs of normals, we brought in those 2 pairs I mentioned last week, and they're going to be going together. So that's those 4 sorted, those 4 are 2 pairs, so that's what we're looking at in normals. And then we've got another pair of normals. We've got a hen we bred this year. She's a nicely well marked bird, and then we've got a normal which we didn't breed off this year, or we did get some chicks off them, but sadly they weren't reared, and he's actually got a white flight and a few white tail feathers. He's a complete normal bird, bred from a line of normals, and then he's just got a few white feathers which is actually kept through the molt as a flighted bird now. So I'm going to put that with them. Maybe he'll produce something different if he's got these white flights, but overall I'm just thinking the colour on the bird is actually quite a good dark colour, and it might work quite nicely for him. But if not, well, we might be bringing on another pair of normals from a different line in the coming weeks, but we'll have to see how that goes for the rest of them. So the colour variant side of the red polls, so cinnamons, we're going to be looking at two cinnamon pairs. So it's going to be going something like a cinnamon cock to a cinnamon hen, and we've obviously got the daughter to the World Show second winners, your silver medalist from the 2020 World Show. So that's some nice birds to use there, and then we've got the son of that bird, so we're going to be doing mother to son on that to try and keep the blood close, to try and preserve that for the quality. We've got then a daughter of that World Show second one, and that is going to be going with a nice normal. Now we bred a normal not last year, the year before, so this is a 2020 bird. It's a normal, and it's split agate and cinnamon because of how it was bred, and what we're going to do is it's actually quite a nicely, it's not a badly marked bird, but it's a good shaped bird and it's a good size for the common lesser red polls, and we're going to put that in with the cinnamon. So it's going to be a straight cinnamon pair, cinnamon to cinnamon. It's going to go straight normal to cinnamon, and then we're going to have 3 pairs of cobalts. Now I said about this last week, we had some DNA sexing done by Avigenics, and I sent in a few samples of I sent all the normals that we bought the other week, and I also sent the cobalt which we bought in about 2 or 3 months ago, and sadly that was bought in as a cock, but it actually turned out to be a hen. Not to worry, it's still a nice bird and we can still make it work. So I've decided we're going to bring one of the cobalt cocks, an older cobalt cock that was one of the first red poles I had, and we're going to bring him out of retirement, and we're going to put him to that bird because they're from the same line. So it's going to be a pair of cobalt to cobalt, so we'll probably we will get some double factors from them, should we, fingers crossed, breed from them. And then for the other two cobalt hens, we brought them in we brought them in from Stafford actually, and they're looking good. So what the plan is with those two is we're going to do one with a normal, which we've bred this year from a cobalt, so hopefully it'll enhance that and work quite nicely. So that's a normal that we bred this year. And then the other, well, we're going to put that to a cinnamon, and we're going to get a cinnamon cock to a cobalt hen. You're going to get cinnamon hens, you're going to get cinnamon cobalt cocks. I think you'll get cinnamon cobalt hens as well, and I think you might get normal cocks in there as well. So it's an interesting one, and then any cocks will be split for cinnamon anyway. And I think it'll work quite nicely. I think they'll complement each other. You've got the feather quality of the cinnamon, and the cinnamons are very good birds. They're quite well marked as well, and I think that's going to merge quite nicely, I hope, with the cobalt, and we'll see what the results are like for next year. So for the rest of them, well, I think the brown pastels will be going. Obviously we bred one this year from a normal split brown pastel cock. It's a nice bird, but it's just not got a place here, sadly. If I had the room I would, but I want to make sure that I'm focusing down the route I want to go, and maybe we'll get a pair of brown pastels in the future, we'll see. And there'll be a few hens to go as well. I'm going to be keeping probably 2 or 3 hens spare in the breeding season anyway, because you never know with birds like this, especially as we had last year, the heat waves, it can really knock them off the feet, and you do lose some occasionally in the breeding season. Not very often, but you can. I just want to make sure if I do lose any, then I've always got something to go to immediately, which will be kept in the young bird shed. As regular viewers will know, the focus really on the greenfinches is on the normal birds. Previously I've had agates, I've had pieds, but this year it's just a case of let's get those normals up to a good standard first before we go looking into the mutations for those guys. So it's going to be 5 pairs of normal greenies for next year. So 2 pairs are going to be made of some of the show birds. We've left back as the better birds. So we've got 2 hens, 2 cocks. The 2 cock birds are 2 birds that we've bred this year. One of the hens is a bird we've bred this year, and then another one of the hens is an over-year bird we bred in 2020. So all nice birds, and that's going to probably make up about 2 pairs there, but we're going to be having 3 more pairs. We're hopefully bringing in another pair, I'm hoping in January sort of time, from a good friend, but if not, then I'm going to make sure what I select is 5 pairs, and we can always move on a pair should we get these other ones in. But it's just as an in case I've got those birds if I need them, and then what we might do is we'll keep a hen back for the breeding season as a spare if we lose any hens. I've not lost any greeny hens in the breeding season anyway before, but you know, it could be a first, touch wood that it isn't, but it could happen. So we're going to keep a greeny hen spare. So yeah, it's just a case of with those greenfinches, we want buffs and we want yellows, and we want the good coloured birds, and we also want, well, obviously it's a difficult bird with trying to get everything, because you need the shape, you need the size, and you need the colour, and it's all trying to get all those 3 things in the right balance to produce the best birds. So it's just a case of sorting through them, which I'll be doing soon, and I'll show you. And if you're following OC Aviary on Facebook, then you'll probably see a few of those birds come up for sale, which have just not made the cut for what I'm going to be breeding with. Still very good birds probably, but then still they're just not as good as what I need for the breeding season. So something I've got to take into account when I'm sorting the greenfinches, not so much the red poles, because we have got quite a bit of different lines in there with the red poles, but with the greenies it's genetic diversity, because we want to make sure that we're not getting the pairings too close, and the overall benefit on the stud is fine, and the stud is going to be healthy. So what I've got to do is make sure that I've got outcrossers in, as well as making sure that my pairings are good even when I've got an outcrossing. So I'm going for the 5 pairs as I've mentioned. we're going to be keeping 2 hens from the 2020 breeding season. We're going to be keeping the mother and a really nice well-coloured daughter bird from that. So it's a 2019 hen, 2020 hen there. Then we're going to be keeping 3 birds that were bred this year, 2 which were bred by myself from the really good cockbird. So this is Mark Pontin's cockbird, so the Evans and Pontin line, that one. And then we've got another hen in, which is a well-shaped, good coloured bird from Mark Jones. So it's 3 different lines there in our hens, and for the cockbirds it's 3 different lines as well. We've got the original well actually it's 2 different lines. We've got the original cockbird from Mark, we've got 3 sons of that bird that we're going to be taking to the breeding season, and then we've got a really nice well-coloured cockbird, slightly smaller than the other normals, but it's a very nice and well-coloured bird, and that's from Mark Jones, and we're going to be pairing that into one of the hens that we've bred this year, and I'm hoping that it'll all complement each other nicely, and we'll see some quality birds coming out next year, fingers crossed. And what I've also done is made sure that we keep a spare hen back. So what I've done is, after a bit of an assessment and a bit of a weigh up of, I've got 2 choices here. I've got it was between a hen we bred in 2020 from Paul Meek's line and a hen we bred this year from the Evans and Pontin line. I decided that I think the best to go for would be the Evans and Pontin line, based on the fact that this particular hen is a good sized bird and the colour's quite good, whereas the other bird was really well coloured, but it's just a bit too, it just seemed a bit too small, and I just thought, I think we've got a good mix here of really well coloured birds and good sized birds for the breeding season. So let's make sure we keep something back that's going to be able to be paired as much as, you know, it would be compatible as much, and hopefully be all right. So fingers crossed it works all right, and hopefully we don't lose any hens anyway, but if we do, we've got something spare. So I also mentioned we've had a few new things in the bird room, so we're going to go through the 2 things. So first, as you've probably noticed this whole video, is we've got a whiteboard here now, and we've changed the display a bit. So we've got our rosettes all across the top, and then we've got this nice big whiteboard here. The idea of this is it's just very simple, very easy to use. Obviously you've just got a marker pen, and I can just make notes on that, and the main idea for that is using it in the breeding season. So let's say come in the morning and cage 9's eggs have hatched, I can make a quick note, cage 9 there's 1 chick in the nest, and then it means that when I come in the evening we can check again, or maybe we need to make a note of ring these today, or anything like that. Just useful little things on the whiteboard. And then even when it just comes to me working out pairings, just going through pairings in my head, talking to myself, trying to work it out, just make some notes on here. Very useful. So something that I think is going to be quite useful in the next well, definitely this breeding season, but we're going to be keeping this now for a good while, so something really useful there. And then also I've had some cameras for the aviaries for a while now. I used to have them when this whole place used to be just a mixed flight for exotic and foreign finches about 4 or 5 years ago. And I've decided we're cleaning them down, and I've rebooted them all up. So we've got a camera, one of the cameras out in the canary flight at the moment, ideal for checking on the birds, especially with fireworks being around the new year and obviously bonfire night. Keep an eye on the birds, make sure they're all right, but also just keep an eye and check on that. And I am thinking of getting a different camera for in that same flight, because that's where we're going to be pairing that special pair of birds I talked to you about. I've mentioned over the past few weeks that we're still supposed to be getting, should be getting in the next few weeks, and we maybe have it as a nest cam, and you'll see why, because they're not normal, and it'd be exciting to see how they get on. So we've got a flight, so we've got a camera in there, live camera, and it also, you know, can get it on catch up. So if there is, for God forbid, any ever security problems and someone's trying to steal the birds, then I've got cameras on them all the time. And then I've also got one in the young bird shed, just meaning I keep an eye on the young birds when it comes to breeding season, and at the moment the show birds are in there as well. But that's my 2 sort of bird camera ones for that, more for keeping the eye on the birds than the security level, but we do have obviously quite a bit of security in place to make sure that, God forbid, if it ever did happen and someone tried to steal the birds, then we have of course got something as evidence, and also something hopefully as a deterrent. So something useful in there. But we've got these cameras, live cameras as well, so I can keep an eye on the birds, and if I do see anything interested on them, I can show you guys in a video. And like I said, well, I'd like to get another camera to put on the nest of these new birds, hopefully should it happen in the breeding season. So that brings us to the end of this week's video, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it, found a few useful tips, and I'd just like to say I hope you all had a good Christmas if you didn't see the last episode, and a happy new year. Fingers crossed all goes well in 2022, and it'll be exciting to see more of the shows on. So thank you very much for watching, everybody. Please, if you're new and you haven't, subscribe down below, smash the like button, and I'll see you in the next video.